Good day, everyone. It is Tuesday, the 1st of June 2021. I'm now back in the UK and I'm going to be doing my market analysis again. I have split this up into different categories. So, for example, you want to have a look at cryptos. There is, you can obviously skip to that section. I've also included today, which is new, I'm going to start having a look at some of the treasuries. I'm going to have a look at the Eurobond, the 10-year note out of the US, and I'm going to have a look. I've changed up some of the stocks of interest. Okay, so the content will be shifting around, and ideally there'll be chapters that have some more interest for you. So kicking off, having a look at the currency markets, starting off with the US dollar index. So again, nothing in terms of the bigger plan, nothing much has changed. I want to see how the US is going to behave around this $90 level. Certainly there's a little bit of support, a little bit lower than that on the daily, but in principle I'm still expecting there's a really solid rejection on Friday in terms of that trying to go higher, trying to bounce off the 90 level, getting pushed right back down. There's quite a bit of pressure on that US dollar to head a little bit lower. So, but we're not out of the clear yet. You can see historically it has held both that level as well as 89 have held as levels of support. And if it wants to ping pong and if it is truly range bound, then this is a fair place for it to turn around. Okay, so having a look at that. The weekly has produced an indecision candle and therefore could actually become a bit of a turning point. So right now, it's higher risk. Look, what I'd like to see it do to maintain that trend is ultimately break down, but it could ping pong around here for a while and therefore it's high risk. Moving on to the euro dollar. Euro dollar is looking, for all intents and purposes, as though it wants to push on to 1.23. Had a really nice correction there, nice healthy retracement pushing on, and actually in the path of least resistance, okay, aside from a little bit of some kind of possible little bit of rough weather here, is that I would expect it to be able to push through on up through and keep going through to the next level. Okay, so really just going to add that in. And so a little bit of bumpy here, but once it breaks through that, it should be able to make it up to 1.23, which will push that US dollar down. Sterling as well, continually bumping its head against this 142.42 level, right? But aside from that, which isn't really visible here on the monthly basis, it should have a run up to that 43.50 level. Again, also hinting at potentially just that weaker US dollar. Now, both the Australian dollar and the Kiwi dollar have no real clear direction at the moment. Okay, so incredibly high risk for me. I wouldn't be touching them for trading purposes. And they're not really giving much indication of where they want to go. Then having a look at dollar yen. So dollar yen, having pulled back, produced a bit of a bullish candle. I'll be looking to see if this climbs a little bit higher. Dollar yen will often do its own thing. It'll do its own thing, and but again, that's got some room to run up to 111. Okay, so it's freedom to do that. It'll do its own thing. In other words, if we look at some of the other yen pairs in a moment, they definitely have a clear direction. But when it comes to the US dollar or dollar yen, it seems to do its own thing. So having a look at dollar Swissy again hovering around this 0.9 level, and you know, just look at this a little bit of intraday kind of, or not intraday, but sort of macro or micro levels of support here that it's struggling around. Overall, it's the most similar looking in terms of correlation to that US dollar index, and therefore could push a little bit lower. Again, I'm just exercising some caution with these. Dollar CAD continually testing this 1.2050 level for support. You can see as soon as it steps below this level, price pushes it back up. It's sort of hovering around that, inherently looking weak, but also, I mean, this is a very, very strong committed move overall. It wouldn't surprise me if it did actually manage to push through. At the same time, I'd love to see it kind of take a bit of a retracement. I can see how it's slowed down on the weekly, kind of pausing here, but it just doesn't look strong. It looks kind of as though it just might tread water for a while and then break lower. So there could be a possible move. If it does break down below here solidly, then I would potentially start looking for shorts down to the next key level, shorting opportunities. On to the currencies of interest. So now what I'm going to do is I'll just do it by section. The currencies of interest on my watch list for trading opportunities this week is EURUSD. So it's come back down to the bottom of the 1.550 range or 1.5 range here, looking for it to do a retracement to the upside. It has got a confirmed uptrend on the weekly. Looks as though it's pretty much heading towards 1.6 at least. And the daily has, although it is encountering a little bit of resistance in this area, it has produced some nice bullish setups, and therefore there may be some intraday opportunities if this continues up towards that 1.6 level. On pound Aussie, similar structure here, a nice little level of local support and resistance, price pulling back, looking for a bullish daily candle to form here. So this would be either today, tomorrow, or Thursday, and then looking for that to be an excuse for it to do a swing and then start to head up a little bit higher. Again, although there is a little bit of kind of rough weather ahead of it around the 1850 level, which I should actually just put in here, so we'll just stick that in about 1.850. I would like to see this break through that and continue high, but at least up to that level, there's some possible potential money-making opportunities for me, I think. Euro yen. Okay, so again, I'll repeat what I said last time, is overextended on the daily, but having managed to break through this 133 level, not that bad on the weekly, starting to head up towards the top of this channel. Overall, the chart structure is really good. We did actually have a bit of a pullback on the daily and head away. So any kind of pullbacks down towards this level to test it again, for me, I would see that as a buying opportunity. Pullbacks into the moving averages, I would see as a buying opportunity. So I'm still nice and long on this at this point. Should price fall through here, break this low, at any point while I'm waiting for it to retrace, if it does that, I'm just going to pass on that, because at that point that would hint at a weekly retracement or potentially even a monthly correction. Moving on to sterling yen. Sterling yen coming down already, beginning a bit of a retracement back into the moving averages. Even if it comes down to this previous high, which is potentially also, let's just say, a 50-foot retracement, or even down into any nice pivot levels, that would look good for me as an opportunity back up to 156.79. Then on to Swiss yen. So Swiss yen for me looking really good. I would have loved to have seen it come back down to test this 118 level on the weekly and then continue up. Again, it's very close to 124. Might as well just push on. And so again, there might be some swing opportunities. There was a previous trade taken over here. I didn't take this because it was actually a bit of a flat level I wanted to break out first, but this one now for me a potential buying opportunity. I'll be keeping an eye on it, and that might even be today, any of these becoming potential swing points and looking for that up to 124. Then on Kiwi yen, I really like this for the following reasons. I love the idea that price is now potentially coming back to test this previous level of resistance. Now, the fact that it's clearly very strong resistance does not mean that price will definitely find support. It could just fall right through that. In fact, in my mind, if it does actually do that, that obviously weakens the idea, and I would become more and more concerned about that. Certainly if it does come back and produce a really nice bullish rejection candle right off that level, then I would be keen at considering that as a potential buying opportunity to the upside. Now I'm going to add Aussie Kiwi on. Generally speaking, Aussie Kiwi is quite messy as a chart to trade. It's not always a favorite of mine, but I do like this structure on the daily, and therefore any retracements back up into the 107 level. So I'm just going to mark that in. 107 level would be potential shorting opportunities to the downside. I'd be looking for that as a shorting opportunity, especially if it overlaps with a pivot and or fib level. Okay, so that's it on currency pairs. Let's move on to commodities. Okay, so in commodities, starting off with gold. Gold is really just kind of breached past that 1.9 level. It's above that level. It is overextended on the weekly to some degree. You've seen it kind of move here, retrace, ping pong within this area, so it's not impossible it could do that. It's looking really nice on that monthly time frame. I quite like the look of that. So it's possible the price could fall back down through this 1900 level back down to 1850, and actually I've passed the 3-to-1 target on this original trade idea which I posted. By the way, I need to update that, but just to come back to current conditions, yes, it's possible it could come back down to 1850, and that might be a potential opportunity for buys. But actually, any pullbacks into the moving averages, in principle, I think I'd prefer them if they're above 1900. Okay, so in other words, if it manages to go a little bit higher, then come down and test it, that's good. Overall, I would still very much like to see gold continue up towards 1950. Okay, let's have a look at silver and then I'll reassess that. Silver looking pretty good. Okay, some kind of nice just marking this bullishness here, followed by an outside candle, which is often very frustrating. That means you tend to get triggered in and then stopped out. In this case, I actually didn't trade silver. As I said last week, silver for me is not ideal. But using it as a correlation tool for how gold is doing makes a lot of sense. It really wants to break into this area, and this is a strong area of resistance. It's struggled to get through for quite a while, but it is slowly but surely chipping away at that, and this is something I would look to see this week. Can it push and head back up to $30 and see how that goes? Then having a look at copper. So in my mind, obviously copper being very overextended here. That weekly having pulled back and produced a bullish candle, now looking a little bit more bullish than bearish, looking really good on the weekly, just looking extremely overextended on that monthly time frame. And comparing that to, say, for example, the daily. So the daily is now in a downtrend, but this is quite a big downtrend retracement, which is actually a weekly setup. So this is what I'm looking to. I want to see now. I want to see price break the high of last week's candle. That's what I'd be looking for. So if there's any opportunities here where price could break above this high, then I'd potentially be looking for buying opportunities. Okay, I acknowledge that the risk is higher because it's very overextended on the monthly, but on the weekly it looks good. On the daily, that would signify a potential shift to the upside, would signify potential bullishness there. So alternatively, should it just drop this way, I will just leave it alone. Okay, so if it is overextended on the monthly, it's going to have a correction. It'll just do that. Then palladium, similar. So palladium had a nice little breakout here. This is a great consolidation because it means that this move is well deserved. And then here we can see prices pull back here. We potentially broke the high of that already. So for me, although there is a downtrend on the daily, I'm quite liking the look of this. So I might then start to look for buying opportunities on those lower time frames. Of course, any kind of bigger pullback to this level to test it for support is also acceptable to me as well. So really, if it just starts to head straight down from here, no harm, no foul. Then I'll have a look and see how it reacts at this level. Potentially it's one to come down to correct this level. But alternatively, I'll be looking for opportunities for it to continue up towards that 3,000 level up a little bit higher. And that's it in terms of metals, precious metals. Let's go across and have a look at crude oils. So crude oils, then starting off here with US crude oil. I spoke about it, essentially the possibility of it struggling a little bit with these resistance levels, and this is something to keep in mind, and I stand by that. That's still something that I have just kind of in mind here, but certainly it's undeniable here. It is looking to break higher. It has broken through this recent level of resistance. I'm not comfortable just yet. I do want to trade it up to 70 if it's going to continue to go. But as far as I'm concerned, it is still stuck within, let's just call it this kind of band of noise. And therefore, I just cannot quite relax until I see it get past that. So let's call this market structure. And it's obviously encountered some strong resistance here in the past. And this is something I want to see it get out of that. So if we can break above this recent level here towards a sort of 67, 68 level, then I might be looking for longs to head up to the upside. The weekly, again, although there's quite a bit of exhaustion in these areas here, you can just see above them, all of them, as opposed to kind of here where it closes almost at the top, closing almost at the top, closing almost at the top. There's a lot less of that here. So there just aren't, without a doubt, and it's kind of, look how far it's moved in 7 weeks compared to here 2 weeks. Okay, it's moved the same kind of distance. So it's not as bullish now, and there aren't as many buyers at the top. It's kind of pushing its way overall, not a sign of strength. Look, I've seen this before, and then it did pick up pace, so I'm okay with that. It kind of did it here previously in January, so I'm happy for it to do that, but I want to see it break free of this kind of band and then start to hit a little bit higher. Then I'll start to get more enthusiastic about it, and that could be this week. But looking at UK oil, okay, so look at UK crude, that's breaking through this level, looking much more enthusiastic, looking actually a little bit stronger here as well. I'd like to see this. So certainly this might sit on my watch list today and tomorrow, looking for intraday opportunities up to that 74 level. All right, and then that being that might be of interest, I'll go through to, I have got actually included, no, I haven't got any oils, any others. So that's it on crude oils for now. Let's go across and have a look at the US, the global indices. And here we go, global indices, starting off with the US indices. So again, yeah, still overextended in my opinion, due for a nice little bit of a correction. Now the candle's going from relatively large to a little bit smaller and smaller, so losing a little bit of steam here. We might get a very well, what would you call it, organized or kind of very smooth, calm kind of a correction here at some point. That weekly looks good. So we've got a really nice kind of bullish setup here, big round number 35 heading up towards that. So I'll be curious to see if there is any kind of a reaction on against that 35,000 level. So just want to see how that goes. But overall, this is looking good. There's nice structure, looking nice and bullish on that overall. Starting to, having been very kind of divergent and bearish here, it seems to start to be showing signs of bullishness. So I may well consider some moves to the upside intraday only, based off that weekly's bullishness, taking into account, of course, at some point there'll be a bigger correction. But so far, not looking that bad for this week at any rate. The S&P, I want to see how it reacts at these previous levels. So just coming into this batch of previous highs, which might give us a little bit of resistance, but we'll see how that goes. And so again, that weekly in isolation looks great. That's a very nice bullish setup here. The monthly doesn't look that bad. A little bit overextended, not as bad as some of the others. Okay, so that overall still looking relatively nice and bullish. And here we can see we've become a little bit convergent again. We go from these highs up here to these highs. So we've got a low and a high and a higher low and a higher high. So we've got these higher highs here. And we can see if we compare this, we can see these are starting to climb again. So they're starting to become bullish again. Okay, the NASDAQ. Okay, so the NASDAQ again, I kind of am still concerned. Look, as bullish as, say, last month's candle was, it hasn't gone any higher. It's still struggling with this area. So in this case, I would do this and just highlight this as my area of concern, just kind of capture that in it and see if we can get past that. Okay, overall, that daily looks good, looks nice and bullish. There's a little bit of local previous support here. We're getting back over that. Then there might be some intraday opportunities up to these highs. So in isolation, there might actually be, there appears to be bullishness here. I know the longer term correction hasn't gone away, but there does appear to be some really nice bullishness here. So that's good. Then having a look, finishing off with the Russell. So this is the US comparing this. Let's finish that up. Still within its range. Hasn't gone anywhere. But it does now look more bullish. So if I look at the last 4 weeks, including this current open week, looking good. That monthly struggling a bit. So overall, the markets may just be keen on doing another push up, but a lot of them have to get past those previous highs to convince me that they are onto fresh highs. So FTSE, moving on to the FTSE out of the UK. This one overall obviously not as strong. I want to keep it above that 7,000 level, and you can see it's encountering a little bit of that kind of soft resistance up here. It's attempting to stay above that. No real clear signs of super bullishness compared to, say, the DAX. Again, here looking at the German DAX, it started to trend higher. So I can see the MACD starting to climb, that RSI starting to break a little bit higher. These are bullish signs, or at least they're supporting it. That weekly looks really good. Monthly looking again overextended, but kind of, there's bullish. There's, it's bullish. Eurostox index breaking a little bit higher here. So for intraday opportunities, exact same sentiment here as I said on the DAX. Let's have a look at the Nikkei. So let's go across to Japan. And this one having a bit of a retracement, as I said, and now starting to slow down, meaning it's not that bearish anymore. It's got a downtrend on the weekly, but it's starting to push up a little bit. So I'll keep an eye on this because it may want to head a little bit lower. But so far, the rest of these markets are starting to show signs of bullishness for, at least, if for nothing else, for this week. They might decide to lose it by the end of the week, but right now they're looking quite bullish. So here we go, the ASICs out of Australia. So this one, I'm going to add that. I'm definitely going to mark that little level. There's no doubt there was a bit of a kind of a reaction against that level there, and the 7,200. Okay. Overall, it's range bound a little bit here. That weekly looking okay. Definitely, there's no doubt this is now starting to tap the previous highs. This is what it's really battling with psychologically. You can see that. So that might as well be that 72 level as well. So let's just put that in, and then that's there. Keep that in. So yeah, this is really what's going on here. Overall, if the US markets continue to climb, everybody else continues to climb this week, I would expect this to break through and carry on going. Interesting though, if it does suddenly just fall through this level back down to these, I'll revisit that when it happens, but it doesn't look necessarily as bullish then. Okay, so now let's go on to the stocks of interest. Okay, so these are going to be stocks that are of interest to me. I always include Apple in this because, well, it's worth talking about at the moment. Okay, so we've just kind of got a strong level of resistance here, and we've got a bearish monthly candle, and we've got this price coming back down. So we spoke about this, I think, prior, where this might be a potential lower high, and therefore with this one to come back down to 120. So the question will be, will 120 hold? If it falls through 120, then it starts to look like it's going to head down towards 107 and 100. And again, it's not looking that strong on the daily. So Apple not looking strong. So this is what I see it as right now. I kind of see it as consolidation or potentially bearish consolidation, bearish outlook. Moving on to Tesla. So Tesla, I spoke about it coming back into this area here, and what would it do, and that it had the opportunity to kind of either turn at the top or potentially turn at the bottom. Looks as though it's really in its defense, in all fairness, looks as though it's attempting to turn around right where it is now. I'm just going to update that and put that at the 540 level, so I'm pretty happy with that. And that looks good. So the question is, can it hold, and will it work its way back up to 715? Alternatively, if where it is now this week, it just comes back down, then we're starting to look more and more bearish. But this is the attempt, and I'm okay with this because on a monthly basis, that's perfectly acceptable. It's had a nice correction, let off some steam. It looks pretty good. If it wants to, it can continue to attempt to climb up here. It's going to have to get past these previous highs over here. But overall, that's good. This is just something I spoke about, is they kind of had that point. It could kind of come back. It needed to correct back down to here, 600, potentially as far as 400. And it looks as though it's going to attempt to turn around in this area. So we'll see how that goes. So then on to a few others of interest as well. Let's look at Ark. I'm a big fan of Cathie Wood's at Ark as well. So this is one of the ETFs. This is out of the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE. And quite like the look of this. Same thing here. This had let off a lot of steam, bounced nicely off that 100 level. It is in a weekly downtrend. So this is what I'm looking for to see if this is ready to go. We've got a nice little bit of a rejection, bearish rejection candle here. So it might head a little bit lower, but overall, my point is that this has been an incredibly steady performer. It's obviously ramped up as awareness and credibility has increased for them, and as they've kind of become, the track record has improved. So this is what I'm going to be looking for, is if this closes as a bullish candle over the next few weeks, this would then become a really nice, for me, potentially a nice little buying opportunity to the longer term in terms of portfolio, in terms of / investment holdings. So here I'm looking to break these lows and to see if we can manage to do that if, on the other hand, this week it finishes lower. So in other words, there are no signals immediately to take action, but I wanted to draw your attention to it now over the next few weeks to see how this reacts. If it heads lower, then it obviously has more steam to let off. In fact, if Apple, Tesla, and Ark all head lower together, there could just be a bigger picture sell-off. Okay, moving on to Anglo American, which is also on my watch list. Got a very nice weekly chart. Nice little bullish swing low at the moment. A bit of a rejection, but exhaustion creeping in here off that 3,500 level on the monthly. Bit of exhaustion creeping in there, so let's. I want to see if it can manage to push back up to that level. It has come back down to testy, so when you get a deeper correction down to previous levels, that could potentially be a sign of weakness. So again, I'll be looking to see if we do break lower in this, but I suppose I can say alternatively, there's some potential in this. BlackRock as well, same. It's very similar in terms of its feel to Anglo American. It's kind of got a bit of exhaustion there. The weekly looks good. Bit of a wishy-washy price action signal there in terms of swing lows, and it does kind of have a daily downtrend. So, but overall, I do like the look of this. It looks pretty decent. Then Boeing. So I'm talking about Boeing because, well, overall, it is now in a monthly uptrend of high lows, high highs. We're going to see how it reacts to this. I will see how it reacts to this 300 level. But I like the fact that it has currently pulled back and has produced for the month of May, has produced a very nice little bullish candle off a previous level of resistance. So this can typically be a very nice buy signal, and therefore a move up to 300 would be the next step for me. So I'll be keeping an eye on it from that perspective. Okay. So that's it in terms of interesting stocks. Let's go and have a look at cryptos. I've still got some input on this at this point in time. The cryptos, to me, starting off with Bitcoin, not looking bullish enough. I'd be much happier to see it back over. The correction is good. I'm happy with that. That monthly candle, not really it didn't close sufficiently strong for me, hinting at potentially it's not done letting off steam. So here we've got a nice little bearish setup here. I want to see if we head lower back down towards testing 30,000 again. So that's what I'm going to be waiting for this week. And so we've kind of attempted to come back up to 40,000, couldn't get back over it. Come back down again, produced a bearish candle, could be a sign at further downside. So I'll be wary of that. If it gets back over the 40,000, then I start to become more bullish again. Ethereum, not showing anything different here really. That's a big kind of indecision candle and not really finished with, they basically look as though they're not quite finished with their correction. Then interesting, because DogeCoin is finding some clear support. If I just go through and highlight this here, it's definitely finding some clear support where it is now. It's producing a potential bullish candle on the weekly. That monthly candle not finished yet, but that weekly looks as though it really wants to make another move to the upside. So that's going to be interesting for me. Then we've got Cardano, which is already starting to recover and climb. That monthly candle didn't take as much of a knock. And so basically, right now, Cardano is stronger, relatively speaking, than Bitcoin and Ethereum. NEO. Okay, so NEO is similar. It has a big problem with this 120 up to 140 level. It's not going past that anytime soon. That's a very strong correction, but it's in a really good place to start to recover from here. So for me, I want to see if we can break this previous high. So if we can break the high, let's just see what that is. The high here at, come on, 66.51. See if we can break that. That'll start to show some, for me, increasing confidence in a move to the upside. And then Ripple, we just highlighted this now. There might be an interesting situation here. Will this will it start to come back down? Is it range bound, or will it manage to break a little bit higher? Okay, so that's it for cryptos, and then just wrapping it up here in terms of the last section, I'm going to be talking about the Eurobond and having a look at popular treasuries, government treasuries, central bank treasuries. So having a look at the Eurobond. The only reason I'm drawing your attention to it now is because this is the first time I'm doing it, but it's not really going anywhere. So basically, currently, the biggest ones, if we have a look at, say, the 10-year treasury note out of the US, not really going anywhere. Okay, so again, trying to kind of climb, it's just very wishy-washy. There isn't a huge demand for them right now. But a couple more bulls than we've had, more buyers now than we've had previously in a while. And so I'm just going to be keeping an eye on it, but nothing in terms of any clear signals for me, not showing a huge amount of demand for them at this point in time. And that's quite interesting to me in terms of that as a state of what is the headspace of the kind of economy, at the global economy at the moment, is, you know, stocks are looking a little bit more bullish and there's no real sign of a shift towards safety at this point in time. And you can see here, look at the monthly here for the Euro bubble. This is not going anywhere either. Okay, it's a weekly downtrend. It's definitely holding. There's some support here. There's definitely some support here. So I'm going to mark that as well. In fact, I'll go with this one here, the weekly. There is definitely some support here. It's trying to hold above that, but it's not really trending. It doesn't mean that it now has a future to the upside. It just means that it isn't necessarily heading any lower. And so just mentioning that, wrapping it up on treasuries, basically not showing much signs of fear or uncertainty in the markets. There's not a big move to moving towards buying these. Okay, so yeah, so for me, just to kind of summarize, if I go through currencies, I think there are some opportunities in currency markets. I'm cautious of that US dollar as it unfolds. If I then go across to commodities, overall, the metals to me looking bullish. The oils, crude oils also looking potentially bullish. The global indices also hinting at some bullishness, certainly over the next few days. Then at my stocks of interest, I'm going to keep an eye on those in line with that. Cryptos, not necessarily clear whether they have finished their journey or not. And then wrapping up with those treasury notes, not really showing any signs of fear or uncertainty or panic in the markets. There just isn't necessarily a market for buying central bank treasuries at this point in time. So there we go, ladies and gents. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic week. I hope the weather is as good where you are as it is here.